Hello, good morning, everybody. My name's Adrian Weidman. I am the founder and CEO of Immersive Design Labs. I was responsible for the global introduction of the Willy Studio microphones. And now, 40 years later, I'm back like a moth to a flame with the release of IDL microphones and our full 7.0.4 array. Our philosophy is to use the room acoustics as an active instrument in recording, capturing live performances. And the idea here is we want to empower the musicians to take control of their own mix. I met Willy Porter, Willy, about a little less than a year ago at a house concert. And I shared with Willy the philosophy and what we were planning to do with Immersive Design Labs. And it resonated with Willy, the whole concept. And so began our collaboration. And it started with a performance at Power Station at AES last October. And the plan was set in motion the plan to do a full session with an ensemble with Willy's band at EastWest Studios in Los Angeles in concert with the recent NAMM show, the end of January. So we booked EastWest Studios and Willy began rehearsing and preparing for that ensemble. And we're going to get their reaction, Willy and Mai's, but let me do some quick introductions here so people get a perspective. Willy Porter, and I'm taking this off of your website, Willy, so I hope it's accurate. Some folks are lucky to find what they love to do at an early age and quietly settle in for the long haul, expanding and developing their work over the arc of a lifetime. Willy Porter is one of those artists, a singer, songwriter, vocalist, and guitarist from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Washington Post wrote that, quote, Porter is a dazzling acoustic guitarist with a moody baritone. The Village Voice said Porter captures the street corner ethic of acoustic performance perfectly. And the Boston Globe reported that Porter is a guitarist who possesses, quote, the Olympian speed of Leo Kottke, bolstered by rootsy vocals and twisting offbeat lyrics. Very good. So does it fit, Willy?
The jury's out. The jury is out.
Yeah, I'll account for that. I'll support every one of those comments. And Mai Bloomfield, based in Los Angeles, Mai is also a singer-songwriter, guitar, and cellist. She is best known for her work with Jason Mraz and her indie folk pop group Raining Jane. This harmony-rich foursome continues to tour heavily and were the support act for Sarah Bareilles. As a cellist, she has played on more than 100 records, including, this struck out in your bio, including Leonard Cohen's final album, You Want It Darker. So fantastic. So, Willy, let me pass it over to you. We've only got 20 minutes or so to discuss this, but going back to our first introduction on this concept and how and what resonated with you.
Well, I think first of all, what's so great about trying to record into the immersive format is the idea that you really can't edit anything. And you're capturing the photograph of the ensemble playing as they really play, with all of the humanity and movement of tempo and pitch. You can't autocorrect anything, and that's really appealing to me as a live musician. That's really how I survive and make a living, is by performing live. So I love the idea of trying to manage the dynamics of the moment so that you really are self-mixing with the other musicians. And that those two elements were great, but also the possibility of splitting up signal sources And we can talk a little bit more about that, but utilizing Matt Wallace's idea of wet-dry rigs so that the acoustic instruments could be captured by the microphones in the sound field where we were performing, but then we could also have amplifiers that had effects or were treated differently in different parts of the array to complete the surround and utilize the full depth of the sound field that way. So all of these elements combined for me to make it really kind of what I call new old school. You really are able to perform with real intention and clarity and focus and rehearse up for a performance more like an athlete than a musician. You're preparing in a way to really be ready. And I think it really makes the musicians feel closer. There's an intimacy and a proximity in the performance that's just undeniable for me.
So I wanted, as a segue, you were, when we first met, we started this conversation, and given all the years of your travels and work, you were able to introduce me to Neil Dorsman, who we worked with at Power Station, and then with, as you said, Matt Wallace and Will Kennedy as we planned for this, and it sort of rolled. And in that same preparation, as you said, as an athlete, you had mentioned, Mai Bloomfield and how you saw constructing these various tunes and the arrangements. And so with that, Mai, I'm curious if you could recollect when Willy called you and said, "Hey, we want to do this session." How did he present it, and what did that mean for you in terms of wanting to participate?
Thanks. Well, it's so great to be here, first of all. And anytime I get a phone call from Willy Porter, it's good. I'm like, it's just he's such an amazing artist and person and soul that he's always involved in quality projects, and he's always going to bring high quality and caliber to anything he does. So I'm already going to be listening from, like a really trusting place from artistry and technical. That's something I've always admired about him from touring that we've done years in the past, just witnessing the grasp that he has on all of the intricacies of the technical side of audio, and how all of that makes a difference in the experience that the listener has. And he's done that so well on a live stage, managing that, all the frequencies, just the sound system itself, but then his gear and each room and everything. So he's really tuned into that already. And I think when he called, it was sort of like, I got to tell you about this thing. It's very different, very interesting. This could almost be like a beast of a thing to tackle, but an incredible, like maybe mystical experience. It was kind of like, let's like step into this. This is something uncharted territory, basically. And so we're going to go in big, but careful and thoughtful. And we realize that we're going to be stepping into something that we're really all beginners at. And so there was a sense of awesome excitement and some intimidation, just wanting to be really, really practical about what we're doing and not take it for granted. And so I kind of, got introduced to the idea in that way of like, this could be and probably will be something absolutely incredible. And it's so different, and we're going to have to learn as we go and really approach it with a lot of thought, which is how he does everything. But this was like next level.
Well, and I think you mentioned something I have to include myself when we started talking about this. I think as I use the expression, I think we entered this way over our ski tips. It made a lot of sense, but I think as we got closer to the date and once we committed to the studio time, I certainly was apprehensive. but everybody leaned in an exceptional way. And I think the people, I think some of the people that were at the session at EastWest are actually on as attending the webinar here. And those people were, those people, I think we all were really lucky to experience what happened in that 12-hour period. One of the things I want to go back to in conversations with both of you, you both made, completely independent of one another, you made comments about how you play and practice with your bands in the living room and how you've always wanted to convey that to the audience. Willy, can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I think that when we get together and we're sharing music as musicians and listening to each other and responding to each other, and I've done this with Mai, rehearsing for a tour or practicing tunes for a session in the past, there's something that happens. There's a cohesion and there's an essence. You're in the music. You're playing for the sake of the song. And a lot of times, technical limitations, sight lines, having an audience in one position in front of you dictates that the band performs in a different way. And those elements can take away some of that collective cohesion that comes so easily when everybody's really relaxed and just enjoying playing the music. And so that was really compelling about this process for me this time, doing the immersive recording, because it really is capturing the same vibe. And that's how it read to me. And that's what we went for in rehearsal, was we just wanted to translate that same energy into the session. And I'm sure Mai has some thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking now about some of the preparation for it, but I will echo what Willy said about the magic that happens when musicians are just playing in a room together, that you're not performing and you're really listening to the song, and you've probably spent months or years writing the song, having the song teach you what it wants to say, learning how you want to play it, how it goes over well live, preparing for all the parts you want to play, and then, but when you sit down in that room together, it is a photograph of that moment of what does it feel like exchanging these vibrations with these people in this room right now. And so no matter what you prepared for, you're also going to have to surrender and really trust. And I think, the more time or more skilled a musician is, sometimes the easier it is to let go and trust that space. I think preparing for this was interesting. It's making me think about all the rehearsing I did before we got into the studio, because we actually live in different cities. So I did a lot of rehearsing alone. And maybe you were going to ask about this. I might be jumping ahead.
No, go right ahead. No, please.
Okay. Willy started rehearsing with the two other band members in their town in Milwaukee. And they would weekly rehearse and send me work tapes of the songs as the arrangements were taking place. And then I would practice it in my studio in LA. And I'm playing cello and singing and just trying everything, and I've got it on loudspeakers and I'm playing, and it's just so thrilling and big. And I have all these parts and all these ideas, but then when we get into the living room together, they fly to LA and we have a couple days before the session. It's like almost, 75% of that went out the window. And it was like, pare down and don't do all that stuff. It was great to get that out of my system, I guess you could say, or just to explore the music in a bigger scale and then bring it in. And then you let go of all the things that you could do and you reduce it down to something you're going to choose to do. And we actually, I think, Willy, we really did. I don't think we were improvising much in the session. I think we improvised enough in the living room that we kind of zeroed in on the delicate, specific, reduced down parts. And I think I would say for myself, at least, I improvised more in the tone and the spirit and the expression of the performance itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what was really fascinating to me, Mai, was the distillation process. And I realized that, it's like writing a song. Sometimes you way overwrite the song. You have like 10 verses, right? And then you kind of have to say to yourself, well, what are the key kernels here that I really want? And so I just have great admiration for how you played through this music and distilled it down. That was fascinating. And yeah, it's just an honor to play with you. You're such a world-class musician. And I think you brought so much to this. And it was so energizing for the three of us to show up and sit down with you. And all of a sudden, voila, we have this quartet that was just incredible. So
I want to jump in and saying, as an observer, all of what you're saying, that's what was so mesmerizing to, I think, myself and others, certainly in that control room, was all that preparation, the fact that we weren't doing overdubs, that it forced that issue, that everything that you've just shared, it was there, that emotion, that sharing, all of those elements really came across. And I think that's where those of us in that control room, I mean, we just looked at each other sort of gobsmacked. That essence of the song really was captured, which, as musicians, to be able to play those songs from start to finish without interruption, it was spectacular. It really was spectacular.
Oh, that's so cool. It's making me think of a cooking analogy. Like you could be a mad scientist in the kitchen just trying out all these things and making a big mess, which kind of is more like a studio recording session where you're like, let's try this and let's do that. And we can overdub. And what does it sound like if we bring in this thing and a little bit of this spice? And it's just or you could be like the Zen master chef where you've done it all, you've figured out the ingredients, and it's like a little ballet, and you just, here is my masterpiece.
So I know we're coming up on about 15 minutes. I just wanted to share with those in attendance, if you do have any questions, please put it into the Q&A section of your the view that you're looking at, and we'll certainly want to get those off to Mai and Willy. I want to go back. I know you'd mentioned it when you created these arrangements, and it speaks to Mai and from her rehearsing separately and then coming together. You've said, Willy, which is a really fascinating perspective, is that when you create these arrangements, you're looking to fill the full frequency range. And
absolutely.
Can you expand on that? Because I think there's a week from now, we're going to do another seminar where I'll share sort of the technical side of this recording. But I wanted to get your thoughts on as a musician, as an arranger, as you create these sonic experiences for the audience, if you could share that concept of filling that frequency range, that full frequency range.
Absolutely. So in live performance for me, I've been using, the acoustic guitar kind of as a bass guitar, as a percussion instrument a little bit, and then using all the mid-range frequency that it can generate as well, as a way to sort of have the guitar be the band. I've been doing that for a long time, from tours with Jeff Beck and other people, as a solo opener, being able to cover that frequency range from, let's say, from 40 hertz up to, 8K, that's this usable audio range live. I've really tried to figure out how to make that work, and also have it so that the guitar arrangements are such that they don't step on the vocal range. And so that's just been a trick and a way of approaching how I perform live for a long time. And in this context, without a bass player, Mai and I have a lot of frequency range crossover points between the cello and the guitar. And so dividing up those chores so that we weren't occupying the same spaces, for one, with the same range of notes, frequency-wise, was really fun and also challenging. But then also utilizing Ryan Pearl's guitar skills and his mandolin to sort of fill in some of the top register frequency content that we wouldn't be generating. I wasn't going to be generating as a rhythm guitar player primarily in this context. So that, by splitting up the frequency content chores, if you will, on a song-by-song basis, the roles become clearer for each individual musician. And it's there isn't this role sort of identity conflict thing that happens, because everyone recognizes when they listen to the playback that there is a spot for them and they're contributing to the whole. And I love that. And I think a great string quartet obviously does that perfectly. And I'm just really inspired by that approach, combining that with immersive recording so that there really isn't a need for an overdub. You know, could we have used a bass player a couple of times? I think so. The guitar is able to do certain things by using the wet dry rig, going through a QSC monitor and capturing some of the low end that way. But we didn't have that. And I think the economy of that is also what makes it really compelling to me. That you don't have a bass player is kind of, wow, what an interesting choice. And I think that serves the songs pretty well in this first batch. So I'm interested to hear what Mai might have to say about this process.
Oh, well, I think everything that you said, you know, just recognizing the frequency space that each player can contribute to, you know, it does help make choices, because we had to make a lot of choices so that when we went in on our limited time, we could just deliver, you know. So it was a lot of choosing and removing and really zeroing in on what's the least, in a way, sometimes what's the least I can do that's going to provide the most. And when we recognize that, then we can really know that we're going to give something that's going to serve this immersive sound experience, the recording of it. I was just also really excited about the wet dry opportunities here, because I love that as a cellist, working with the effects and that we were able to, same with Ryan on his resonator guitar. I mean, there were some really beautiful tones. So it was really fun to have space for that to be included. You know, this atmospheric swirl that we had going on. There was this interplay of atmosphere that was able to be included. It was so fulfilling. And we also could have this really true, authentic acoustic sound of strings, you know, fingers on strings and voices in the air. I loved the way those things all were able to fit together. And I actually just wish we could do it all over again. And I guess we get to.
Yeah, we get to. Yeah. What a great segue, Mai.
Yeah, Mai.
Yeah. So a couple of things as we have about 5 minutes left. I know there's a question here I want to put out to you folks, but just want to get in. Number one, we had a great time. And from a commercial point of view for Immersive Design Labs, for me, it's all about listening to the results. You know, we can do spec sheets all day long, and at the end of the day, it's about, you know, what does it sound like? And I can say it sounded phenomenal. And as a result, we're doing showcase number 2. We'll be headed to Nashville on June 12th, and we've booked Ocean Way, so we're going to use that room. And Willy, Mai, Carmen, and Ryan, and maybe others, surprise guests, right? Who knows? If you'd like to attend, if you're in Nashville, we're going to do very similar to what we did at EastWest. If you'd like to attend, please register on the Immersive Design Labs website. With a little bit to, oh, and I also want to add, this project sort of has gone so well that I know Willy is organizing and wants to make this a commercial immersive recording release, and we're shooting for hopefully a release by the end of August of this year. So stay tuned. Let me pose this question. How do either of you think this recording approach will translate to other musical genres, especially those where overdubbing, let alone auto-tune, is commonplace?
Mai?
Yeah, I was just going to say, welcome the challenge. I would say, I think for any other genre, consider it an invitation to think about how you're just technically going to approach delivering what you want to deliver. I think that's a great challenge for people who are used to overdubbing. It gives you, it's like an invitation as an artist to explore how else can I express this. And if you're true to your genre and then you give it a new format, it's like picking up another instrument. It gives you another way to really dig into this thing that you want to express with like new tools, and you can get amazing results. So I would say don't be afraid of it, but take it as an invitation, see what's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. I think there are some genres that jump out at me right away because of the balance between the signal sources already, particularly bluegrass. Just seems like, holy smokes. You could record some incredible bluegrass immersive recordings. And the same holds true for indigenous native populations, and trying to capture some of the music that is naturally occurring, in the Amazon, and some of these incredible musical and spiritual experiences that could be cataloged in this way. The experiential nature of the playback is so inspiring that I think once musicians actually hear it and understand it, they won't want to do anything else. I know that, it presents challenges in terms of how are you going to capture drums? How are you going to do this, that, and the other? But I think those are just really fun hurdles to try to overcome. And I just see it as the future personally, because we need to rehumanize music. We need to get away from auto-tune. We need to get away from the grid. And this is the way in.
Yeah. Fantastic. I know we're coming up on just the top of the hour here. I want to thank you guys for participating. We'll get to some of these questions offline. I'll follow up. And one of the questions I do want to say, we're starting to get some of the binaural fold downs of some of these sessions. And I know Willy has been kind enough that we'll put at least 1 or 2 of these up on the website so you get a flavor for it. But we're excited. We're going to do this webinar. We're going to do one next week where we'll delve into the techie side of this. I know you guys shared about this wet dry. It was fascinating, and tip of the hat to Matt Wallace for making that suggestion, because that was amazing. That was wonderful. So we'll delve into that. And with that, I'm going to say thank you, and thank you for the attendees. Thanks for taking time out. Thanks for sharing, Willy and Mai. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I took a walk, a dog and a leash, felt the cold settle into my skin. can't trust the sun, she's burned me before, but I know I should let her back in.